Good morning, Mizzou fans. Gabe DeArmond here, back another week, PM in the AM for Tuesday, January 17th. Going to talk a little NIL, spending, budget, all the stuff you guys pay attention to college sports for today. Eli Hoff of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch published an article on Tuesday morning, and I don't want to give away a lot of Eli's reporting. It's a lot of good work. I encourage you to go read the story. More comprehensive stuff on Missouri's NIL than anybody else has had. And again, he did the work. I want you to read his story at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. It's on their website. But what is publicly available, what Eli tweeted out, Mizzou spent a little more than $31 million on NIL payments last year. Now, a little bit of perspective in that. About half of that was spent in the months of January and June. Two things happened there. Number one, the football transfer portal in December and leading into January. And then number two, in June, schools across the country paid out a whole bunch of money to get it done before July 1st when the revenue sharing kicks in. Basically, if you were going to pay a kid for next year in NIL money, if you do it before July 1st, in other words, if you pay one of your athletes from, for the next calendar year by June 30th, then you pay them whatever you want. The NIL deal goes through and all that. Starting July 1st, there is this NIL Go clearinghouse where NIL deals, outside NIL deals, third party, are going to have to be approved. And most schools believe that there's going to be a significant reduction in what is allowed to be paid. In other words, you want to pay a kid $1.5 million to play for you next year, you could pay him all that money in June, and nobody's going to say anything. You try to wait until July 1st and get that through on monthly payments, there's a pretty good chance that NIL Go is going to say, hang on, that doesn't make sense. That's not fair market value, and the deal's not going to be approved. So schools, including Missouri, made a whole bunch of those payments in June. Now, I want to add some context to these numbers. Again, a little bit more than $31 million. That is department-wide across all sports. The majority of it, about 2/3, according to Eli's reporting, went to football. About a quarter went to men's basketball. And then the other, whatever it is, 7, 8, 10%, something like that, was spread out among all the other sports. We're really concerned with the big two here. So what's that budget going to look like going forward? Well, you have $18 million in revenue sharing, which is going to be paid out. Our estimations are 13.5 of that's probably going to go to football. Somewhere around 3 million probably going to go to basketball. The other 1.7, whatever's left, 1.8, probably going to be spread among the other sports. So that's your starting point in football, 13.5 for a roster, 3 million in basketball. Now the question becomes, what can you finance and get approved on top of that? What's a reasonable goal for your roster? What we don't know, and I've talked to people involved in this, is what they don't know. What kind of deals are going to be approved? Can you try to pay a kid $1 million to play defensive end for you? You can, or I should say a third party can. Will it be approved? Nobody knows that. So we don't really know exactly what the budgets are going forward. But I'm going to just kind of throw some stuff up against a wall here. You're starting at 13.5 million in football. If you get that number to 20 million, if you can find $6.5 million in outside NIL deals, I think that's going to have you very competitive with a lot of places. Now, again, is that a reasonable number, or is that me saying something that is simply not going to be realistic in the revenue sharing NIL world going forward? I'm not sure. Basketball, again, your starting point, most SEC schools probably going to have about $3 million for the roster in revenue sharing. Can you find another 2 million there to spread among your 13 to 15 basketball players, however it may be, in outside NIL deals? Obviously, these things are going to be top heavy. Your starters, your big time players are going to get most of that money. In the past few years, what we've seen, I'm fairly confident every scholarship football player at Missouri in most places was getting something in terms of quote unquote NIL money. They're all maybe going to get something in terms of revenue sharing money now, but they are absolutely not all going to be seeing NIL money going forward. So I think you're going to see the overall numbers come down. 20 million total for football, somewhere in the range of 5 or 6 for basketball. Is that reasonable? Then you spend, a combined, 4 million on everything else, bringing your total price tag to $30 million. Again, 18 million of it financed from in-house, 12 million financed from outside. I can't promise you these numbers are right. I threw some numbers by a guy I know that's involved with NIL this morning, and he said, I think it's going to be significantly less than that. Now, my numbers were higher than the 30 million I'm talking about right now. So I think that's maybe a fair starting point for if you want to be a competitive power conference football team. Now, there are a million, and basketball team, there are a million questions around all this, right? All these people who have financed Mizzou NIL for the past 4 or 5 years, are they going to continue? Can they continue to do that at this kind of level? Are they willing to continue to do it? Also, are schools across the country going to actually follow these rules? Or are we just going to go back to dropping off, McDonald's bags on park benches? And, hey, we know the rules say we can only pay you 50 grand, but don't worry, we got an extra 100 that you just got to pick up here along the way and not tell anybody you got. A million questions about all of this. Just kind of wanted to throw some thoughts out. Thought this was a good topic for this morning. Again, I encourage you. I don't do this a ton, but when people in this business do good work, I want it shared, and I want you guys to look. You should pay for it. This is how all of us make money. So if you want to read the full story and get tons more details than I've offered here, you can go read Eli's story in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch this morning. A lot of good stuff there, but I just kind of wanted to riff off what I think might happen going forward. And the last point, and this really should have been one of the first points, what we're talking about here is the 2026-2027 school year and sports calendar. This isn't impacting this year. This year is basically paid for. Rosters are going to be submitted to the clearinghouse, to the NCAA within the next month or so. So these deals, these contracts have all been signed. That's why Missouri spent almost $11 million this month, because they've all been agreed to and paid out. So this isn't a situation where you're trying to figure out how to finance this year's football team or this year's basketball team for Eli Drinkwitz and Dennis Gates. That's done. What we're talking about now is moving forward, starting with the 2026 recruiting classes, the 2026-27 rosters. So while you're here, like, comment, share, subscribe, do all the things that help our channel. We're picking up activity as we get closer to media days, football season, all that. So we're here most weekdays and then bringing back the weekly shows. 50% off a subscription over at Power Mizzou right now for your first year. That is a little over $53 for a full year of coverage, 100% of the information, 50% of the price. Go check that out if you do not already subscribe. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you next time.